The letter arrives on a Thursday morning. 3 months of negotiations collapsed. The partnership that would have changed everything, dissolved by a single sentence buried in formal language. She reads it twice, then feels the familiar cascade beginning. First, the hollow drop in her stomach, then the heat rising in her chest, the way her thoughts start to spiral toward blame and catastrophe. But instead of surrendering to the storm, she does something her training has taught her. She intercepts. This is the moment most people miss entirely. The brief window between emotional stimulus and emotional takeover when you still have choice. The Stoics called this moment the critical threshold, and they built their entire philosophy around learning to recognize and defend it. Modern minds face an endless barrage of triggers: criticism that stings, setbacks that devastate, betrayals that ignite fury. Each moment tests whether you will be led by wisdom or driven by feeling. But somewhere between the external event and your internal response lies a space of possibility, and learning to operate in that space is the difference between emotional freedom and emotional slavery. This is not about suppressing feelings or pretending they do not matter. This is about developing the capacity to intercept emotions before they intercept your judgment. The first principle is detection. Most emotional overwhelm begins with signals you can learn to recognize if you train yourself to notice them. The slight tension in your shoulders when someone challenges your work. The way your breathing changes when plans fall apart. The specific quality of restlessness that appears when you feel excluded or overlooked. These are not random sensations, but intelligence your body provides about your emotional state. The Stoics understood that feelings arrive in waves, and the earlier you catch the wave, the easier it becomes to navigate. Watch for the pre-emotional signs, the way your attention narrows, how quickly your mind jumps to worst-case scenarios, the urge to act immediately rather than think clearly. Your nervous system is designed to prepare for action before your conscious mind even recognizes what is happening. This preparation phase is where interception becomes possible. The second principle is classification. When you detect an emotional signal, your next task is understanding what kind of information it carries. Is this feeling telling you about something that actually needs your attention? Or is it simply your mind creating stories about what events mean? The colleague who did not respond to your email, is that evidence of disrespect, or simply evidence that people have busy schedules and competing priorities? The friend who seemed distant at dinner, is that proof they no longer value your relationship, or indication that they might be processing their own challenges? Most emotional suffering comes not from what happens, but from the meanings we attach to what happens. Learn to distinguish between factual observation and interpretive addition. What you know versus what you are assuming. What can be verified versus what you are projecting. The third principle is pause architecture. Between detection and decision, build a structure that prevents immediate reaction. This does not mean hesitation or indecision. This means creating space for your highest capacities to engage before your most automatic responses take control. Count 5 breaths while you consider your options. Write down 3 possible interpretations of what just occurred before settling on one. Ask yourself what advice you would give a friend facing this same situation. These techniques work because they interrupt the direct pathway from feeling to action, forcing your rational mind back online when emotions threaten to overwhelm it. The pause is not delay, it is precision. Taking time to respond appropriately rather than reacting inappropriately. The fourth principle is reframe and redirect. Once you have intercepted the initial emotional reaction, you can choose how to channel that energy productively. The disappointment about the failed partnership can become fuel for analyzing what went wrong and improving your next approach. The irritation with a difficult colleague can transform into curiosity about what pressures might be driving their behavior. The anxiety about an uncertain outcome can shift into focus on what elements you actually control. This is not positive thinking or forced optimism. This is strategic thinking, taking the emotional energy that could spiral into rumination or rage and directing it toward useful action. Every emotion carries power. The question is whether that power serves your goals or sabotages them. The fifth principle is pattern recognition. As you practice emotional interception, you begin to notice your personal patterns. Which situations consistently trigger certain reactions? What time of day your defenses feel weakest? Which people or topics reliably disturb your composure? This awareness allows you to prepare rather than simply react. If you know that criticism in public settings hits you harder than private feedback, you can develop specific strategies for those moments. If you recognize that hunger or fatigue makes you more emotionally volatile, you can adjust your expectations and responses accordingly. The goal is not to eliminate all emotional reactions, but to become predictably competent at managing them. To know your own system well enough that surprises become rare and recovery becomes rapid. Consider the letter that arrived on Thursday morning. The woman who read it had trained herself to recognize the difference between the facts. Negotiations ended, partnership dissolved, and her interpretations of what those facts meant about her capabilities, her future, her worth. She could feel disappointment without letting it become despair. Acknowledge setback without accepting defeat. Process the information the emotion provided without letting the emotion process her. This interception did not make her immune to difficulty. It made her capable of navigating difficulty without losing herself in the process. She could respond to what actually happened rather than react to what she feared it meant. The letter brought genuine disappointment, but it did not bring devastation. Emotional interception is a learnable skill, but it requires practice when stakes are low so that it is available when stakes are high. Start with minor irritations. The slow driver, the rude cashier, the technology that fails at inconvenient moments. Notice the signal, classify the information, build the pause, reframe if needed, and learn your patterns. These small practices build the capacity to handle larger challenges with the same level of self-command. You cannot control what emotions arise, but you can absolutely control what you do with them once they appear. You cannot prevent all triggering situations, but you can develop reliable methods for maintaining your judgment when they occur. The critical threshold exists in every emotional moment. The question is whether you will learn to defend it or continue to let it be overrun. The woman with the letter understood something that transforms every difficult experience. You are not at the mercy of your immediate emotional reactions. You have the capacity to intercept, evaluate, and choose. And in that capacity lies the difference between being driven by your feelings and being guided by your wisdom. The space between stimulus and response is where your freedom lives. Learn to operate in that space, and you become the author of your own experience rather than its victim. If this moved you, comment "The Citadel holds below." It is our sign that you carry the philosophy with you. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.